I wouldn't consider myself an expert when it comes to keycaps, but I do have a lot of them. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Tomar Zaman, and if it's your first time here, welcome and thank you for watching. So let's talk about keycaps. When it comes to production of keycaps, there's usually two plastic materials that are used. One is ABS and the second one is called PBT. ABS is usually done with a manufacturing process called a double shot, which means there's a separate injection of plastic into the mold. One for the letter or the legend, and the second for the rest of the keycap, which comes around the legend. The advantages of such a process are that the legend will never ever rub off with constant use, because the legend itself is a separate piece of plastic, usually in a different color, and you could rub it as much as you want it, but it will never wear down enough for it to become smushy or smudgy or unlegible. It will always stay perfect. However, there is a downside to that. ABS plastic does have the tendency to react with our oils in our skin, which means these keycaps tend to kind of shine over time. Some people don't like it. In fact, some are very vocal against it and hate it, but I find it somewhat romantic, if you will, and I quite like the shine that the ABS keycaps develop. One additional advantage of ABS keycaps is also the color choice. So for the color of the ABS plastic, you could pretty much choose any kind of vivid combination of the legend and the surrounding plastic, and it will look great. So there's infinite choices. Now let's talk about PBT keycaps. Unlike ABS keycaps, they are usually done with a single shot process. They can be done with double shot. I think Corsair has a process developed, but the choice of the font for their lettering is not my cup of tea, let's put it like that. However, most of them are still made with a single shot, and then the letters or the legends are printed on those keycaps with a process called dye sublimation, which is a form of printing on plastic with the use of extreme heat. When it comes to plastic choices or the color choices for PBT plastics, we are much more limited in terms of color. However, the plus side is they don't react, unlike ABS, to our oils in our skin, so they will never develop this shine, and also the texture can be very pleasant. Because PBT keycaps are usually done with a single shot, their molds are also less complex or cheaper to manufacture, which in turn also means that PBT keycaps themselves are cheaper. And there's also one other quite significant difference, at least for some: the sound. ABS keycaps usually have a higher pitched sound compared to PBT keycaps, which usually have a thicker wall contributing to that thockier or lower pitched sound. And now to the star of the show: ceramic keycaps. I've learned about ceramic keycaps from my friend who pinged me on Facebook about a year ago that there's this Kickstarter campaign for ceramic keycaps, and I immediately, out of curiosity, jumped on the keycap train. So I pre-ordered 2 sets, and they've arrived last week, and I figured now is the perfect time to make a video review about them. Let's first address the cons. The one major con that these keycaps have is the fitment. Because they are ceramic and thus very stiff, any kind of out-of-spec switch will either not fit, or the keycaps themselves will be too loose, falling off when you release the key, which is honestly quite annoying. In my case, I've tried them with Gateron black inks, and a lot of keys had this issue. So when I would type, because of this bounce back, the keycaps would just fall off. Now the fix for this is not that hard. You just apply small pieces of tape on the stem itself, and the same problem occurs on the stabilizers, especially with the space bar. Because it's so long, the stems of the stabilizer need to be aligned with the keycap perfectly, because the keycap itself won't bend even a micrometer left or right. So you have to kind of make sure that they are aligned properly before you push the keycap down. And I would even argue that more loose stabilizers like Durox could potentially be better, properly modded of course, for the spacebar in particular. And since we're talking about the spacebar, the kit comes with a special switch that you should use for it because it has a stronger spring in it. I've tried my own switches, I've modded them with a heavier spring, but for some reason the spacebar wouldn't come up. But when I used theirs, it did, no problems. So if you're using tactile switches, you will have to do some heavy modding to get a tactile switch with a much heavier spring that it'll push the spacebar up. So that's something to be aware of. Now for the Pro. I absolutely love the sound profile, which you will be able to hear in a moment. But before we get there, let's talk about one more characteristic, which is a pro or a con depending on your preference, and that is the temperature of the keycaps. Because they are ceramic, they are very cold to the touch, and even if you put your hands on them and kind of try to warm them up, they will still be cold to the touch. So if that's something that annoys you, these keycaps might not be the best for you. And there's one final characteristic I should mention in relation to ABS. So some people really don't like the shine on the ABS keycaps. So these, because they are ceramic, come with shine level 9000. They are ultra shiny, so if that's something you don't like, these are not for you. Now, the sound test. There we go. This was my short review of the Cerakey ceramic keycaps. If you like this video, press like. If you like this video, press like. If you learned something new, press share. And if you have any comments, just write them down below. And I'll see you in the next one.